Hey, and welcome to this tutorial on how to use this spreadsheet to do a material takeoff or an MTO for a residential house for framing, siding, insulation, and drywall. And by the way, the framing there, it does not include roofing, so I'll try to remember to put a link to the video that talks about the spreadsheet used for the roofing materials. So let's run through a few of these inputs that we use for this spreadsheet. So you can see we've got a diagram here, and it's got, length here. That would be your length right here, and your width right here. That would be your width right here, and then your interior walls. So what you do is you just add up all of your interior wall lengths and just put it right here, and then your height. Whether you're using 9-foot walls, 10-foot walls, whatever you use, and just put those there. And then for your windows, you can put your window and your door data here. So for example, you can see I've got 3 different types of doors. You can update these if you want to, even though the orange cells are inputs, but you can also, and I made them orange because those are the ones you normally update for every project, but there may be some items that you want to update every now and then, but anyway, that includes this. So for example, the type 1 here, you can see I've got a 3-foot width by 4-foot height on the window, and then I got 4-foot width and 4.5-foot height, 5-foot width, 5.5-foot height, and that's type 3. And then on floor 1, for example, for type 1, you've got 4, and then same type 1 on floor 2, you got 3. So that's how that works. And then similar for the windows, you've got type 1 and type 2. You've got, and this is not an industry, terminology for these 2 particular items right here. Type 1, that's just something I came up with. For this one, so it's a 3-foot width door by 7-foot height, and the next one a 6-foot width by 7-foot height. And on the floor 1, you see we got 5. Floor 2, we got 3. So that's basically it. You put in your doors and windows there. Then over here, well, before I go there, so this is a rectangular house here, and if yours is not exactly rectangular and you want to get it a little bit closer, I mean, you'll be pretty close, I think, if you just leave it like that, unless yours is significantly different from a rectangle. You might have to do different spreadsheets and on here and just add up all the rectangles or something like that. But anyway, I think if you want to get a little closer and you're just deviating a little bit from a rectangle, you can try to make sure that your perimeter is pretty close. And these are just some calculations that you may or may not ever want to look at, but these are just kind of over here out of the way. These are just numbers that are easier just to do it once and then use those numbers in the calcs over here. But anyway, those are just kind of over there. And then you've got, so let's run through these. So you've got the subfloor items, which is part of the framing, but I did separate it out from the framing. But you can see here's the subfloor things that you got. The first item, if you're using OSB, again, you can update this. If you're using plywood or whatever you're using, you can just change this description here. And you can see it's on the first floor. You can update the dimensions here if you need to. So you can see I've got a 4x8, but if you made this an 8x8, it should cut it in half. So it should go from 62 to, cut it right in half. So now if I put it back, it'll go back to 62. And now if I make this a 4, it should double it. And I can see it did that there. Went up here, and then I'll just go back. Okay, and then 3/4 inch is here. That doesn't have any effect on these calculations, but just for your own information. And then so you can see that the quantity is being calculated here. Then you can do your manual. Like if you get pretty good at this using the spreadsheet, and you do a lot of projects, and it's going to be 7% more normally, then you can just put that here. And this spreadsheet is mainly made for the person who just wants to do a pretty fast, quick and dirty, and not too dirty of a takeoff that they will need for the materials at the site, and then they hopefully have a relationship with companies where they can any excess, if you have some leftover, you can just bring it back to them and they'll refund that amount. Then you've got the next item here. You've got your floor joists, and again, I put 2.5 by 11 7/8, but whatever you're using, you can put whatever you're using here. Even though it's, the orange cells are the inputs, but the blue cells, if you need to update those, you can. Now here's the orange cell, so if you can change if you got 16 inch on center, you can put it there. If you're doing 24 on inch on center, you can update that. It'll update the calcs for you. Then you've got your rim joists. You've got your treated sill plate here. Again, if you need to update this to whatever you're using. All right, and very similar items for the second floor as well. And if you don't have a second floor, you can just basically zero these out like that. And that'll also update your number here. So this is summing up all of your items together. That's what that number is right there. So anyway, I will just go ahead and put those quantities back the way they were. And when these costs over here are multiplying your manual quantity that you type in here times your price here for each item. Then you've got your units here that you're using for each of these. Okay, and these units also apply to these quantities as well, both of those. Okay, so that's the subfloor. Then we've got the framing here. You can see we've got the ceiling joists here. I'm saying we're using 2x6. Whatever you're using, you can update this to accordingly. 16 inch on center. You can put whatever you're using on center. Then let's see, ceiling joist LVL. Then you've got your bottom plate fur. If you're not using fur, you can update that to whatever you're using. And then the exterior wall, I assume that was going to be treated. And then I put 2x4 here. You can put whatever you're using there again. And then your bottom plate for your interior wall, I did separate that out because sometimes it's treated and sometimes it doesn't have to be treated. It just depends on your foundation type, so that's why it's separated out like that. Your top plate is here, and you can see I put a 2x4. If you're using something else, you can just update that accordingly. And then we've got your fur studs. Or, again, if you're not using fur, just update it to whatever you're using. But this is your studs here. I've got 2x4, but if you're using 2x6, you can put whatever you're using. 16 inch on center. If you're using 24, you can update that. And then you can see the formula here for it. Looks a little messy and complex, but basically it's just it does take into account your doors and your windows, so it's subtracting all that out. For those areas, and it's taking your lengths and your widths and your interior walls and all that stuff to come up with your studs there. Your header, the assumption here is that it's going to be a 2x12, and this is just taking all the widths of all the doors and all the windows, and just assuming that you're going to have a 2x12 there, a double 2x12 there, and but again, if you're doing something else, feel free to update this accordingly to what you're doing. And then similar idea for the remainder of these is just basically repeating these. If you have a second floor, you can kind of estimate those too. And then for your siding, you've got your siding here. It's pulling off the areas and everything to come up with your siding and your house wrap and your OSB, and it's based on their sheet sizes here, and then it just does it again for the second floor if you have one. Again, if you don't, just zero these out right here. And then your insulation, it's doing let's take this one for example. It's got your ceiling insulation, bats. This is for the basement if you have a basement. If not, you can see I just zeroed that one out, but But anyway, for this one, you can see for that ceiling insulation here, you've got these, you know, and you can update these bat sizes too to whatever you're using, and then this will update the calcs accordingly to what sizes you're using there. And then for your wall insulation, these do take into account the doors and windows for the insulation there. And then on the drywall for the walls, it also takes into account the doors and windows, ceiling height and all that stuff. So so it's got your walls, it's got your ceilings. Just in case if you're doing something else on the ceiling or something like that, I just separated them out so you can see them, the quantity separately for the walls and the ceiling. Similar for the second floor. There's some, I briefly showed these things over here. These are just, you know, some other peripheral calculations that are needed that help to simplify some of these other calculations over here. That's what this is. But you know, typically I wouldn't even you know come over here and look at this. So yeah, so that's it.